Hey folks, and welcome to the Iron Sysadmin News Recap for the first week of September 2025. First up, we have some news from the GNOME project. They've got a release candidate for GNOME 49. There's not a whole lot of note in this particular release. There are a number of bug fixes, which if you go look at the article linked in the description of today's video, you can go read all about. The most notable change is that GDM 49 is re-enabling X11 support by default. Now, this isn't that they're backpedaling on their decision to move away from X11 support. It actually has to do with how they've implemented the newer protocols. In fact, directly from their changelog, it says they've re-enabled the X11 support by default. They found it difficult to cleanly separate GDM's ability to launch modern X11 sessions, which they've intended to keep enabled in GNOME 49, from the rest of GDM's X11 integration. So this sounds like it's more like a temporary workaround until they can get that worked out. In other news, the Rust Foundation is announcing the Rust Innovation Lab. Now, the Rust Innovation Lab is an initiative to try to help projects that are written in Rust with some of the sort of more mundane aspects of running a project. Basically, they're there to help support the developers so the developers can do what they do best, develop code, and not things like manage communities and deal with funding or staffing. The first project being brought in to this new initiative is Rust TLS, which, as you might expect, is a TLS implementation for Rust. And we have a couple of articles here on one of my favorite topics, gaming on Linux. First of all, Philip Rebohle, who is a developer working for Valve, has announced the release of DXVK version 2.7.1, which brings some performance improvements to the package. Now, what is DXVK? Well, it's an interpretation layer between the DirectX API and the Vulkan API. So this allows games that talk DirectX to talk to Vulkan, I presume. So in this release, there are some improvements to the DirectX 9 support. According to the article, this release has fixes that are targeted to help the performance of games like Crysis 3, Comanche 4, Alone in the Dark, Dungeon Siege 2, Fallout New Vegas, Guilty Gear, Scarface, The Witcher 1, Team Fortress 2, and other titles. For our next item, get ready to argue about which interface for X is better, because this comes from the R Linux Gaming subreddit on Reddit. And it's about a user who's recently switched from Windows to Linux for gaming, and they found improvements in performance with upscaled displays in KDE over GNOME. So now you have one more reason to like KDE over GNOME. You can read the whole thread in the link in today's description. And for our last article for the day, in the world of ActivityPub and the Fediverse, the activitypub.rocks website, which has long been a very small website, but sort of a hub for information around the ActivityPub protocol, is being handed off from its current owner to the community itself for maintenance. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to work because that's not outlined in the article. All I have to go on is the news article that's posted on activitypub.rocks itself. But the author, Christine Lemmer-Weber, who's apparently been managing the site for maybe its entire life, goes into some history about the ActivityPub and the Fediverse and sort of where this site came from and what it was for, and laments sort of the lack of updates that have been happening to the website for the past several years, and how they're basically handing the site over to be managed by the community of ActivityPub. So even if you don't care about who owns or operates ActivityPub Rocks, you may be interested in some of the walk down memory lane that's in this article. You can see there's a bunch of historical information about basically the beginnings of ActivityPub and the beginnings of ActivityPub Rocks, the website. And I found it to be a pretty interesting read. All right, and that's it for today's updates. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Remember to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and check out the notes of today's episode for links to everything I've talked about. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in a week.